Hey there, Gareth. It's Dante here. We've just got a few people who've joined us for the presentation. So what I might do is just introduce myself. I'm Dante St. James. I'm going to hand over in a second to Gareth, who I'm not sure has a camera available on his computer here, but I'll be here to sort of help facilitate this along as well as we look into the big bad world of intellectual property protection with Gareth Benson. So Gareth, please introduce yourself to our people.
Hi, Dante. Can you hear me okay?
You're coming through loud and clear. Just can't see you, that's all.
Yeah, no, sir, you may need to enable my camera. That's what my device is saying. You cannot start your video because the host has disabled it. But happy to begin while we look at those technical issues. Thank you for the warm welcome, and it's great to be collaborating.
You're going out, by the way, sorry.
Yeah, you're good to go? Okay, thanks. Thank you so much. Can you see me loud and clear? Clear. I'll just get going. Basically, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and great to be collaborating with you. I am an intellectual property lawyer who has, for the last 20 years, been advising small to medium-sized business owners on the power of protecting their intellectual property. Now, basically, in relation to this area of law, then one of the other things, the key things that I just want to express is that I've also been an entrepreneur working in various capacities as an entrepreneur, having run a digital media agency, and also most recently working in the area of education. But as an IP lawyer, what I have seen in 20 years of business is that the vital importance of actually protecting your number one visible asset, which is your brand. Now, just to get going, I'd just love to understand a little bit more of the people on the call. And one of the things I'd love for you to do is, if you wouldn't mind, please, is actually put into the chat box your business or your brand name. So just by way of participation, if you wouldn't mind, I saw Mark's on the call. Hi and welcome, Mark. And I think I saw a narrator as well. If you wouldn't mind just putting in who and where you're from Walk Darwin. A narrator, I remember meeting you from October Business Month. Great to have you on the call. Walk Darwin, a very good storytelling brand there. Immediately we know exactly what it is. Anyone else on the call too? I can see we've got Richard and Mark. Maybe just pop your brands in, brand names in, so we can have a good and thorough discussion about how to protect this brand as it relates to your business. Even if you're thinking of starting a business, or if you're not quite running and up in operation, really good to understand that too. Well, I'm going to start actually and ask Dante if you could just switch the slides to the next place, please. I want to start this story before we get into trademarks and brands with a story that's unique to the territory. This particular photograph is actually of 150 years ago. It actually marks the occasion where the first telegraph pole was actually erected here in the city of Darwin. And it actually shows you how innovation and ideas have been fueling our society for a long time. But actually, it is also the story of success of Darwin. This innovation, the telegraph pole, is what actually, with rapid fire, allowed Morse code to actually bring messages and stories of growth to advance Australia. In fact, that was exactly the first words that were ever telegraphed here to the city of Darwin, welcoming communications to advance Australia. Fast forward 150 years, we now have multiple, digitization and technology that kind of brings us together, whether that's using online, social media, as Dante speaks a lot about, and we're moving ahead at a cracking pace. The reason that I think that this story here actually demonstrates the power of ideas is that we can see over 150 years how much that has actually connected the territory and Territorians and fueled the foundations for a great life on the frontier that many experience. These same pioneering values are really important in business, and really the object of today's session is to not only introduce you how you can actually protect your most visible ideas, but also the other intellectual property that lies within your business that can fuel greater growth. So if I could just ask for the next slide, please. One place that this is why we're going to embark on a story of finding gold. And in this next 10 years of work, we're going to actually find that the gold in business is actually in our ideas. Well, that's what the objectives of today's session is. We're going to actually discover the gold that lies not only in the power of protecting your brand name, but also in the other ideas that lies within your business. And that begins with a thorough understanding of intellectual property. Next slide, please. It's about actually coming to your business with a firm idea of how you're going to bring your ideas to market. This is otherwise known as a commercialization strategy. It's the overall plan of action that is designed to activate the long-term aim of commercializing your ideas. Now, whether you are, running a touring company, or whether you are an IT company providing software as a service, or alternatively, if you are developing educational resources. One of the things I love understanding is who is in the room, because I can actually tailor how you can actually bring your ideas to market and personalize a commercialization strategy. That often begins with protecting your most visible asset, which is your brand, but it also can go into many other features of your business. And I know without reasonable doubt that every business has some of these cornerstone intellectual property. And to understand where that IP lies within your business allows you to take it to market. And your ideas are a valuable asset. I see your ideas as gold, and so should you too. And really that's what we're doing today. We're understanding the IP that lies within your business. Next slide, please. Okay, next is good too. Thank you, Dante. And that begins with an understanding of intellectual property, which on this next slide is described in detail. What is intellectual property? I'm going to ask you first what you understand intellectual property to be in your business. So if you could please use the chat box there and actually just suggest a couple of things that might make up intellectual property in your business. It's great to understand who on the call actually and what your understanding of IP is. Just seeing if anyone's got some ideas there, because the more that you can actually understand of the IP that lies within your business means the closer you will be to actually leveraging it to commercialize it. Thank you so much, Richard. It's lovely to hear from you. Nerida, concepts, that's correct too. The logo you use, Nerida says the product, the brands, the ideas. The meditation you created, Richard. Yes, absolutely. Is a product of your mind and your intellect. And any of those suggestions that were just made by Richard and Nerida are absolutely correct. Mark also says the technology products and methods and solutions, which is also correct. And now to refer back to the slide here, the World Intellectual Property Organization suggests and defines it as an area of the law which enables people to earn recognition or financial benefit from what they invent or create. It is, in other words, a product of your mind or intellect. And IP has, there's actually 6 main kinds of intellectual property, and some of those have been suggested on the call. The brand, your brand and your logo is often the starting point, otherwise known as a trademark. And that is one form of intellectual property that can serve to protect your brand and also create it as an asset. Now, the thing to understand about intellectual property is that it is a bundle of economic rights. Often your business will contain some elements that are copyright, some elements that could be your trademark. You may have patentable subject matter when it comes to software, and it can even be contracted using licensing tools such as contracts. Okay, and all these instruments are really vital to understand how to leverage your idea. Now, your ideas are very much like a seesaw. The more that you put and apply pressure on that seesaw is the higher you can leverage your ideas. But that begins at home. And that's why today we're going to understand some of the main concepts around intellectual property so you can protect what's in your backyard. Okay, next slide, please. Next, please. We've covered, and that's going to begin with a journey into copyright. And on this next slide, we're actually going to understand what copyright is. It actually began with the Statute of Anne in for about 400 or 500 years ago. This was an age of enlightenment, and it was actually coincided with the advent of the printing press. This was a time that it was seen that writers should gain a pecuniary right, a financial right of their ideas. And the printing press enabled that through the distribution of books. The same is true 400 years later today, when we now have the printing press is the mobile phone in your hand. It is the laptop computer that you are viewing this on, this webinar on, and it is also your social media, your channels of communication through email and otherwise. These are also now are the new printing press. And I'm showing you now that an age of enlightenment exists within your own business where you can leverage your ideas for greater growth through digital pathways. But it begins with the same concepts that began 400 or 500 years ago. Next slide, please. Basically, in essence, copyright is identity. Now, copyright is about protecting your most valuable asset, which is your identity or your ideas. A writer writes a book and a story, and that's personal to them. A software developer writes code for a piece of software that is personalized and created from their mind and their intellect and put into their business. It is a protection of the identity of various aspects of your business. It can exist in your business cards, it can exist in your website, it can exist in your business strategies, and all these combination of assets is protecting your identity. And that is a cornerstone with a capital C. And that's why it's really important to understand when going into business, you're actually protecting your valuable identity. Next slide, please. Under the Copyright Act 1968, we know copyright, as I mentioned before, it's a bundle of economic rights, which gives the owner their exclusive right to own the intellectual property it creates. Copyright protection is automatic. It basically begins from the time that it is created. Now, back in the age of the printing press, what used to happen is that a writer would actually send in their manuscript to the Writers Guild, and it was time-stamped to actually establish what's called a priority date. Nowadays, with the advent of digital technology, we can prove our priority date by the time that it was actually created. And early concepts were emailed to others in your team, or it may exist in the date and time, the date that the web, your domain name actually uploaded the website. We can actually prove priority date so much easier than we ever can before. The one tip that I've got for you is that using the copyright symbol is free, and you should absolutely use it. How many on the call have a website? Perhaps just let me know if you've already got a website up and running. I know Walking Darwin's, I've certainly seen your website, so your narrative, fantastic to see that here. Mark has a website too. Yes, he has two. He's created them. Fantastic. Anyone else? The reason that I show, that's Martin, I think, yes. The reason I ask this is that one of the tips that I have for you today is to actually use that. Richard's creating one too. Great to know. The reason that that's important is that I believe that, and I know that you can, in fact, I'm highly suggesting a key takeaway and tip today is that to use the copyright symbol to your advantage. The reason being is that if you put the name of your company next to the copyright symbol with the earliest date that you actually conceived the business, you're actually creating a priority date in which the value of your business has been created and all the ideas within it. And a copyright symbol can be used like a gate on your property, okay? You wouldn't park your most valuable asset on your front lawn and leave it open for other people to take. In a similar way, you should be putting all your ideas in one place in a proprietary limited company, and on the front of it, visible places of your business, such as your website, you should be putting copyright, earliest possible date. So for me, in IP Assist, I've been consulting for 10 years, 2010 to 2020. IP Assist, okay? Gareth Benson Lawyers and Associates. So that way I have actually signed that my ideas are protected. And that's one thing you can do that's absolutely free for you to do. And I highly recommend everyone on the call do that. The other thing that I might mention is that you can use the copyright symbol on other elements of your business, such as your manual mark. If you're creating software, you can actually be using the copyright for anything that's published. And it's great to see that Nerida's already moving on this, because that's really what the action is. She's springing onto that seesaw to leverage protecting her ideas right now. And it's that same equal and opposite reaction when you put and enforce these ideas, that you're actually creating value from the time you actually draw attention to it. Okay, and you are drawing attention to it by using the copyright symbol. So that's one tip I have for you today. But just moving right along, I'm going to explain a few other areas of copyright, and they do exist in various parts of your business. Next slide, please. Okay, they also exist in the privacy that is in your business. Okay, privacy is a human right, and copyright is actually a part of data protection. And this is going to be such a big area in the next 10 years of business. We saw with the reconciliation, or the report that came out by the NT government, naming a number of different objectives for the territory in post-COVID for business. And part of that, one of the key recommendations was about digitization in the territory. And now in this, we actually need to, every business owner needs to be aware of where privacy and data protection of the data that you're dealing with on behalf of your customers lies. Other people like Mark who are in software, really important to also understand that you actually possibly, if you're doing software as a service, you may be dealing in data. Data is the new gold, and actually it is a copyright, okay? It falls within Copyright Act 1968. Another tip that I have for you as business owners is that while we're talking about websites, is that on the front page of your website, you should absolutely have a privacy policy. It actually goes back to the Privacy Act 1988, and in that piece of legislation, it actually is a requirement to have a privacy policy that communicates to customers how you're dealing with their data. Other updates to this came as soon then in 2018, when the GDPR, which is a European organization, suggests that every business should and must tell their customers how they're dealing with their any data they're taking. Does anyone recall when they got all those cookies updates and terms and conditions, probably about 2 years ago? In fact, I can tell you exactly when it was. It was in May in 2018. That was because of the GDPR ruling. And one thing that I absolutely here to advise you is that if you have customers in the EU, then you absolutely need to make sure your company has not only a privacy policy under Australian law, but also has a GDPR statement. Anyone on the call have customers from Europe? Nerida, I know you probably would, given that tourism is a market. Anyone in the tourism market, and even software as well as Mark is, because software can be global, may be dealing with European customers. So there's two other tips that I absolutely recommend to every business owner on this call, is to have a privacy policy on the front page of your website, something you could all update in the near future alongside your copyright statement on your website. Make sure you have a privacy policy. Yeah, Nerida would have a few. Anyone that's had a European customer or going in and out, had customers coming in and out of the territory, may have European customers. Okay, great to hear, Mark, you've got a privacy policy. What I would recommend for you, sir, is to ensure you have a GDPR statement as well. And I'm happy to chat with people about these kind of issues offline as well, because it's part of the service in supporting small business that IP Assist does in serving the digital economy. Okay, next slide, please. So while we've covered copyright, we're going to move to the next slide, which is going to look at one of the bigger areas of registrable rights. While copyright affords automatic protection, it is patents that actually is one of the registrable rights that is available to business owners. Now, as you can see in the screen here, Patents have covered a wide variety of new knowledge or inventions over time. And it's actually been with us for quite a long time. In fact, Thomas Edison was one of the prolific owners and of patents and commercialization of ideas through patents. His estate held over 1,000 different patents, okay? And some of these you may be familiar with, others you won't. He founded, actually created the kinetoscope, which created what was called Nickelodeons, which in the days before cinema, you'd actually walk into a corner store, pop a dime into a what was very similar to a kaleidoscope, where you actually looked down the kinetoscope, and it was the early form of animation. Probably more familiar with the animation channel Nickelodeon, which actually was derived from Thomas Edison's kinetoscope. The point is he patented that in the late 1800s and actually held the monopoly on the early stages of cinema for almost 20 years before Hollywood took over in California. So it just shows how inventions have been protected by patents, for quite a long period of time. And nowadays, it's much more than machinery or engineering or even the light bulb. It is also such things as designs, clothing, and also even nowadays software. Next slide, please. I'm going to actually describe this for Mark's benefit too, because what is key in understanding whether you've got patentable subject matter is to know these core rules around patents. Basically, a patent is a legally enforceable right over a device, substance, method, or process. And this has far-reaching application. Pharmaceutical drugs can be patented. Software can be patented. Even the new uses around engineering products has traditionally been a huge area of patenting. Automobile and manufacturing, and patents that have gone into that. Elon Musk is famous now for publishing his patents and actually inviting others to build upon his new knowledge, which is an interesting one in the monopoly of rights. But when it comes down to it, and taking a more local example such as Canva, has anyone on the call? I know Dante's a social media advisor and speaks a lot on social media. Has anyone used Canva on the call? By the way, I just want to just to understand whether anyone on the call has used Canva. The reason I ask this question is Canva is a fantastic tool. That's an app, and it's homegrown. Kylie uses Canva, which is it's a fantastic example of Australian innovation because it's only about 10 years old, but also has made a lady by the name of Melanie Perkins the third richest Australian in a very short period of time. She's only 33, by the way. But just to give you an idea of how patents relate to her idea, she's created an app, a tool for graphic design, which allows business owners to create graphic marketing and social media all on their phone, okay, or their desktop. It's basically a publishing piece of software. But just to give you an idea of what this $8.3 billion business that is now worth worldwide lies in its intellectual property. It has 25 patents, okay? 25 patents on the different functionality and uses of this graphic design tool. And worldwide it has 60 trademarks. And that is the difference between a small business or software developer and one that's going global, because they have actually protected through patents some core areas of their functionality. So that's just a little fact there. And it kind of shows to you how patents and registering your intellectual property actually is about valuing your business. Has anyone got any questions on patents? Does anyone would like a little bit more detail on that? Mark, I know that you are developing software, and thank you so much for contributing to this session today. And one of the things that I'd like to say on patents is that software can be patented. There is a new kind of class of patent called innovation patents. And unlike patents which protect a new inventive step, there's a lower threshold called an innovation patent. And often a lot of software can be protected in this way. Okay, we have a patent attorney working with us. His name is Mr. Steve Davies. And Steve has actually created a software application that allows us to do trademark searches for business owners and has patented that, and that is an asset of our business, okay? So patents basically can be expensive, as Richard said, yes, but it's actually an anomaly to suggest that they have no teeth, because what actually it is about building growth. Intellectual property is actually about growing your assets in your business. It's not always about protection. Much like you wouldn't leave your key work vehicle, whether it be a tractor or whether it be your car, that your business car, you would put that away in the garage. In a similar way, you want to put your most valuable assets in securely off out of the way of your business and to build assets. It's actually known as an intangible asset. However, it does have a great value when you look at things like Canva. Canva is worth $8.3 billion and it has 25 patents. Where does its value lie? They don't have the plant and equipment that businesses did of old. They have a lot of data. They have a lot of software that's been developed over years. And actually, it's where the value of that business lies is in its recorded intellectual property. And so what I actually believe is, and I know from working with big and small businesses, is that it's actually building a valuable asset for your business. Okay, Mark, if you can be more specific about that, I would love to answer any questions you have. Reselling products, yeah, okay, that's not necessarily in the area of patents, but I'll come back to that because it's actually about leveraging your intellectual capital and consulting capabilities and giving advice, and that can be protected in a different way. Now, let's move along to the next slide, please. Okay, some of the benefits of patent protection for those on the call. A patent will basically give you the right to stop others from manufacturing, using or selling your invention in Australia or even worldwide without your permission. Thomas Edison used this successfully across multiple industries, and so have many other entrepreneurs over time. Basically, if you've got a registered patent, or even if it's a collection of your assets, you are then able to license someone else to use that idea. That's the essence of protecting your intellectual property. The benefits of patent protection is that it encourages businesses and others to continue to build on new knowledge. And that's why it's worthy of your protection. It's about the leveraging of your asset. And at some stage, particularly if you're in a business of growth, you will need to address the issues of intellectual property protection. Because if you're ever getting anyone to invest in your business, it's actually creating the asset in which people will invest in. Now, I've got a cautionary tale for you here that just shows you the benefits of IP registration. It actually belongs to our Chief Scientific Information and Research Organization, CSIRO. And the next slide, please. This is a story about the benefit of patent protection. Now, not everyone knows, but wireless was actually created here in Australia, okay? The WiLAN technology, the LAN technology was actually built by a team of inventors and was created in the 1990s. Now, I have worked for CSIRO and they are an incredible research organization, but I can safely say that their appetite for commercialization is not a huge value of the organization. They are a research organization. They have created amazing things. They have contributed to Australian innovation. But in this case, there was one idea that escaped Australian shores. It was not patented and it was successfully commercialized in the US. A multi-million-dollar lawsuit ensured, because now the WiLAN technology, which is bringing this webinar, which is used, day in, day out, across the world, the core components of that was not protected. This is ensured in a very hefty legal dispute, which did settle in the favor of the Australians. But unfortunately, it was nowhere near the billion-dollar industry that it had spawned, and nowhere near the value was retained in Australian shores. This is one of the reasons that patent protection could have assisted our Chief Scientific research organization, and stands to reason why patent and intellectual property protection is a value creation exercise. At the end of the day, had we have protected it, that innovation would have stayed on Australian shores. Next slide, please. Okay, I won't go into any further detail on that, but I'm happy to share these slides afterwards if you'd like some more research or some other, just some final tips on patents. And thank you, Dante, for assisting me today with these slides. Basically, there's three kinds of patents. A provisional patent. This patent can be helpful if you are exploring your commercial ideas and you'd like to actually see about them just to test an idea in the marketplace. It's less expensive than an innovation patent or a standard patent, and can allow you to actually explore an idea just for 12 months. At the end of that 12 months, you can roll that in to an innovation patent or a standard patent. So for entrepreneurs, it can be useful, particularly in the area of software where you may be exploring a concept. Okay, next slide, please. This is where I'd really like to get into the gold of the presentation, because I know this asset, this piece of intellectual property will be of benefit to everyone on the call. Anyone that's in business will understand that their logo, their brand has a value. And many business owners that I have spoken to over the years have been on the pathway of building their business under their brand name. In fact, it's often where the first place of the identity of your business begins. And basically, a trademark is a name, designation, or logo that is used to identify a brand or a product or service. Some of the big trademarks, or world most recognizable, have a worldwide recognition, and that's their brand. In Australia alone, Qantas, for a period of time, Ford was a big Australian brand. Kellogg's, all of these are household names, and they stand behind registered trademarks. In fact, this entrepreneur is world famous for his use of this trademark. If we could have the next slide, please. And I'd just like anyone on the call just to name the entrepreneur that is featured in this next slide, because underneath it, we're going to understand the true power of trademarks and protecting your brand. Anyone who'd like to win the prize today of a complimentary trademark search on my behalf for anyone who can name the entrepreneur in this slide, just to see that we're all on board and still seeing. Dante, would you like to hedge a bet? Basically, this gentleman here is basically none other than Mr. Richard Branson, and he has basically been leveraging his trademark brand for over 40 years. In the 1960s, he of course created Virgin Music, and he since, through his registered trademark and brand, has able to leverage into a multitude of different industries over the years. In fact, the leveraging of his brand began several decades ago. In fact, so much so that in the 45 different classes that are available to register your brand, he has over 138 trademarks in Australia alone. Now, some of these include Virgin Atlantic. More recently, he's been venturing into space, Virgin Mobile, Cola. Mr. Richard Branson knows the power of his trademark and his brand, and so should you. At the end of the day, a trademark registration will protect your business brand for over 10 years. If anyone has anyone on the call have a registered trademark and can speak about that in the perspective of their business, I'd love to know. The reason being is that it's a relatively painless process to protect your brand, and once protected, it can actually serve as an asset for your business. Franchises are often built from brands. Yellow Brick Road, made by Mark Boros, Janine Ellis's Boost Juice, or Naomi Simpson's Red Balloon. Basically, all of these are very well-known, highly leveraged trademarks that actually are now franchises particularly the first two that I mentioned, Boost Juice and Yellow Brick Road. And these can actually sit behind very powerful trademarks. Now, the thing is about a trademark registration is that once it's taken place, you'll not only be able to protect your brand in the marketplace, you'll also be able to ensure that your domain name is protected, your business name is protected, your proprietary limited company is protected, any brands that bear the same name, logo, insignia will be protected. And it's highly advisable when going to market, particularly if you're creating a product or a service, to actually register your brand name. Okay, basically, you would not drive your car without a license. So you should not be driving your business without registering your most visible asset, which is your brand. Now, I have a bit of trademark gold to share with you all on the call today, because I want to actually show you how you can do a trademark search of your brand if you have it in the marketplace. So if you're all on the call and you'd like to actually accept some other valuable information here, then what I would like to do is just move to the next slide as we search for some trademark gold. Let's just move to the next slide, please. Okay, so what we're going to do is actually understand how we can actually search for other future product names, or you can actually do a search right now on protecting your trademark. And the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to direct you to this link here, which can be, yeah, if you'd like to do it on the call, Dante, this is great, because it's great to have a interactive session. Basically, IP Australia in this link here will actually link you to, oh, yeah, if that link's opening, okay. It's going to, there you go. Okay, so this, what I direct you to do is to actually, in your Google interface, to actually write Trademarks Act, IP Australia trademark search. That will bring you to this search toolbar, okay? You can even access this on your mobile phone. Now, within this, I'm going to use an example like that we've got on the call. Why don't we have a look at Treaty, Dante, and see where their business is protected as a trademark. One result is there. It's as simple as that. Now, that's not your business, though, you don't believe, is it? No. So Treaty has just discovered that they haven't protected their brand, okay? And in fact, what this search reveals is that there's someone else that is using that name in the marketplace, okay? So, yeah, it was filed in 1992 in the area of True Blue Beverages, okay? And what we can actually see is that this trademark is protected, has been protected for almost 30 years. What is key here is the goods and services. Class 32, as I mentioned before, there's 45 goods and service classes. And then it's protected in the area of non-carbonated water and juice products. So the good news for Treaty Consulting is that they could still possibly get their own name Treaty through, because their class would fall in class 35, which is business consultants. Okay, so this is where the little bit of gold that we have found here for Treaty is that they are capable of protecting their brand as business consultants. And that goes for all their marketing. It goes for all the hard work that Dante's done over the years in presenting. And actually, not to put him on the spot, because I did not realize that we would come up with this result now. It just shows you what a little bit of effort can reveal. And what we can actually do now is that with Treaty or otherwise, I can help them, advise them in how to actually protect their trademark and their valuable benefit. The good news here is that because it's not competitive in the area of business consulting, it's highly likely that it's possible that Treaty can still gain that trademark registration. And it's a really important one to make for maturing businesses or mature businesses, because it's protecting their valuable ideas over several years. And that's the benefit of searching for some trademark gold. Does anyone manage to do that on behalf of themselves on the call? It's actually, as you can see, it's a pretty simple process. It only takes you 3 minutes. And one of the big things that I would highly recommend is that you do this well before you enter any marketplace, because Sprout Marketing is one area, a big agency in town. I discovered on their behalf, and I hope I'm not speaking out of school at all, that there's actually 30, I know that I'm not because it's public knowledge and it's this public information, there's about 35 different examples of trademarks under the name of Sprout. So there you have it. At the end of the day, this is highly valuable information for anyone on the call. And if you've managed to do a search, we'd love to know. We'd love to hear from you just by putting into the chat box. Let's move right along. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to touch on this new area because if anyone's in the area of product marketing or manufacturing, that this is also important to you. Any of these products that you see on the basically on the screen there are potentially registered designs. Okay, calculator, the iPod, pens and biros, which I actually only recently found out to be known as the biro was actually discovered by NASA. Did anyone know that? It was because they couldn't use grey lead pencils in space. So that was one of the many innovations and intellectual property that had been created by NASA over time. Any of these things can be protected by designs. Next slide, please. Designs basically protect the overall visual appearance of a new and distinctive products. Okay, that can be the interface to a laptop, through to cameras, biros, look, shape, ornamentation, and feel. These are the key things that designs can protect. Okay, so the chair or table that you may be sitting on and listening to this webinar is, if it's a well-known brand like Freedom Furniture, highly likely it's protected as a design, because it again gives these businesses pecuniary benefit to leverage that these products in the marketplace. Next slide, please. The key requirements of this is it needs to be new and distinctive, and that's under the Designs Act 2003. Design is what makes a product look the way it does. It includes the shape, configuration, pattern, and ornamentation, and when applied to a product, it gives it its unique appearance. So some of the clients that I've dealt with have actually built multi-million-dollar businesses, and they are designers who have obtained both a patent and a designs over things like furniture. Okay, and that's just the difference between a small business owner who may be buying or selling their product online, distributing their product online, and those that actually go and gain a market share. And designs are crucial in that. The good thing about design protection is that it actually protects you for 5 years. So often people have come up with products when they're concerned about protecting it, they're gaining investors, or they just want to make sure that they're protecting the marketplace, will do their design registration before they hit the market. Okay, I've assisted clients protect everything from coffins through to, as I mentioned before, furniture, and even in some respects, technology, the actual product hardware, right? So PSMs, such as, which is basically a unit for a personal service monitor, a little bit like the iPhone. I can tell you that Apple is also highly have highly protected their look, shape of their products, and just one of the pieces of intellectual property that it's protected over the years. Even the boxes, those Apple, the way that you unwrap an Apple box, that is a shape configuration that has been protected as a design by Apple. So as anyone on the call, a product business, please feel free to let us know, because I can definitely help you understand how you can actually do searches ahead of your time. If you are looking at developing a product, highly recommended. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that what you're protecting and putting into the market is unique. And any of this exercise of understanding intellectual property is helping you value and protect your valuable asset, which is your ideas. Having them secured means you can leverage, you can license them, you can actually build the value of your business. And if one day you sell your business, you can sell it with these assets in place. Okay, we're getting towards one example of this. Actually, here's a good case study, because this always brings things to life. TDE is an Australian fashion startup. They've successfully, since 2011, former lawyers actually, they have actually leveraged their customizable and personalized leather accessories, and they sell them online. Now, the key thing with all this is that they have, every year they register some of their most commercial designs. They don't register every design, but they do register the ones that are their core brands. TDE is also a registered trademark. They also register their designs, and this allows them to actually own their own market, and it allows them to actually also to stamp out any competitors. Okay, whether you've got a registered trademark, patent, or a design, you are able to basically serve what's called cease and desist notice. Now, often I get telephone calls from business owners who may or may not have registered their design, and what often, or their trademarks, and often what I do is I help them protect it. But if you don't have a registration, you can't protect it. It's the only thing that gives you a legal right to actually defend your product, your name, or your design in the marketplace. So having registrations in place will actually give you the power to not only grow the value of your business, but also protect it. Often when people think about intellectual property, they think about the way that they can actually only protect their ideas. But actually it's about both those activities, but you've got to own the asset first. And that's what many successful business owners across multiple industries, software, fashion, design, retail, they are doing on a daily basis. But it begins at home. You've got to make sure that you protect your number one asset in your own backyard first. Okay, so let's move right along. These, of course, there's just some of the pictures of TDE, design fashion label, and most importantly is to have a strategy around your IP. Okay, just because you're entering the market, you know, in the next 12 months, if you haven't already launched your business, what's most important in all of this is to have a strategy around your IP. And that's one of the vital goals I'm trying to share with you today, is to actually just have the knowledge around where intellectual property in your business lies. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, one other word of advice I have for everyone on the call today in the area of intellectual property is to not approach things through a prism of fear. But what is important is to just be diligent and discreet about sharing your ideas. One of the things that I can recommend is that you use NDAs or confidentiality agreements if you're discussing your idea with manufacturers or suppliers in the area of designs, or if you're in the area of software, you may wish to be diligent by getting if you're having discussions with much bigger software companies, just to have an eye on your protecting your ideas by using NDAs. Now, a lot of people will say, some people will say, oh, they're not highly enforceable, but what my legal advice as a legal advisor is that it's important to have certain contracts on record to hold people on account and to build trust. Okay, at the end of the day, signing any contract is about building a trust relationship. It's a communication exercise, and NDAs are no separate to any other contract you may sign. It actually is making people and stakeholders aware of their obligations and builds valuable trust between your partners. At the end of the day, like most things, you need to choose your partners wisely. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll just give you a little idea of a Darwin success story. This particular business is actually 10 years old and has highly leveraged IP protected, and they have been working at solving a technical solution for over 10 years about in the workplace safety. It's a technology solution, and I can show you actually in some of the areas of intellectual property that they have been protected themselves, and indeed have actually raised millions of dollars for their shareholders on the back of. And this business is called Universal Site Monitoring. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a workforce safety monitoring system. They've developed a number of products which are basically useful for for actually ensuring that employees are kept safe in a workplace. Often these are highly industrialized zones. We're talking about mining, oil and gas. And what this personal safety monitor does is actually measure the heart rate and also the other things like gas detection, heart rate monitor, and other aspects. So what this technology does is it actually enables, for the actual body, for the health of the worker to be monitored at all times. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm having worked with this business in what we did at IP assessment. They have 11 different trademarks for their 11. For two of those trademarks are actually for the business, and the rest of the 9 are actually for the different products that we've developed. Okay, they've got a number of different PSM monitors. They've also got a wrist biometric monitor. They have, for several years now, protected these in the marketplace as trademarks. Next, please. They have also, you'll see in this next slide, created license agreements for the use of their software that they have also developed. And they have protected the data of their customers by ensuring that they have an end user license agreement and software as a service agreement in place. And in this next slide, you'll actually see the power of patents, because they actually have international patent, Australia, US, Europe, and China. Okay, so they have seen the value of actually protecting their software in an international jurisdiction. This has been a value creation exercise, and off the back of this, they've been able to raise millions of dollars. And they're continuing on that pathway, having only been developing the business for 10 years. And they're working closely with places like the Darwin Innovation Hub and have secured a number of R&D grants, which has funded their business. They have 11 developers, and they are a good indication of a business with a healthy appetite for intellectual property production, which has enabled them to grow from a small startup to an established Darwin technology business. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is my gold prospecting advice for everyone on the call, is that to have an idea of your intellectual property, to ensure that it is in a register and that basically it can be protected. It means that not only are you beginning to develop a strategy around your IP, you're actually building assets in your business. A lot of this goes back to the fundamentals of property. We are, of course, discussing intellectual property, but property has been with us for several hundred decades, and you have clear title over your house, your car, any of the properties in your possession. But now in this future of digital business, you need to have title over your intellectual property as well. And at the end of the day, that's the value that universal site monitoring has been building in just 10 years. And you should be too. A lot of this is a product of the fourth industrial revolution. If we looked at the last 20 years of business, you will see that the top 20 brands in the world are actually now fundamentally technology companies, and their assets are actually stored in the cloud. Often it's highly leveraged software and sometimes hardware. And at the end of the day, 80% of the value of the business is intellectual property. So the gold prospecting advice for anyone in business is to actually understand the power of your ideas and to document it, create an IP asset register, and place a firm value on your ideas. Okay, I'm just going to now move to the next slide, and we'll begin to wrap up. And really, I'd just like to finish this on the positive note at which we began. At the end of the day, intellectual property is about building growth in your business. And whether you're protecting your brand or understanding the power of your ideas, as we have done so today, it's essentially about a positive mindset in creating value in your business. And so my question for you, Late, is what will it take you to find the gold in your ideas? I put to you that much like the gold rush, which the Darwin Telegraph sparked 150 years ago, that the new gold in the next 10 years of business will lie in your ideas. And the tools that you've gained today is like the hardware, it's the pick and axe that you can actually use to actually place a value on your valuable ideas, decide which ones will have a commercial value and take them to market. All of these things are require a fundamental understanding of intellectual property. And it's probably high time now that I throw over to Dante and anyone else on the call to ask a question or two about the IP that lies in their business with a view to you building further and greater growth in your business.
Thanks for that, Gareth. That was really informative. I got quite a bit about that, and I probably need to have a chat with the folks here at Treaty about it.
Happy to assist,
trademark.
Dante.
yes. So there's something for everyone to learn in these kind of things.
Sure. No problem.
In general, I suppose I would ask, there was particularly a comment before which was saying, it can be very expensive to get patents and they appear to have no teeth, especially in China. Can you speak to the China aspect, sure, and what you generally would recommend in terms of doing that?
It's a great question, a great statement. China is a problem. The reason that China, it's a difficult country to do business. One of the reasons for that, sorry for my background there, I didn't realize that was there all the time, you should have told me. Anyway, I'll just take that one off, let's turn it to IP assist, the licensing right. So actually at the end of the day, it does have a value. However, China is a difficult country to deal with because they are not a common law country, and they tend to have a low value around other people's, around IP protection. Some of that is a cultural, part of that is a cultural thing, and part of it's a competitive thing. You can register intellectual property in China. However, it is hard and difficult to enforce in China. However, I will say this, is that if your patent is protected in Australia and you leverage a treaty under the called the Paris Convention, administered by the World Intellectual Property Organization, then this will actually give you access to 115 other countries that do respect the reciprocal rights of patent protection. Now,
sorry, Gareth, we seem to be losing your connection there a little bit. Just dropped like the last 30 seconds, I'd say.
He did build his.
I would say we're not going to come back from it. Yep, I think he's just dropped out there. So thank you for being part of this. Apologies that's dropped out at the end. But thank you to Gareth. I'll pass on his thanks as well. And thank you to you for joining us today and spending a bit of time working on your business, not just working in your business. If you want to watch this again, it'll be available on YouTube's Business Stations channel in the next couple of days, possibly over the weekend. But in the meantime, thank you, Gareth, for joining us. And we hope to get you back in January or February to talk a bit more about these topics as well.
I hope you can hear me now, but thanks so much.
Loud and clear. Thanks, mate.
Thanks so much. Oh, that's great. Thanks for everyone on the call. I'll email everyone with the slides too, and thank you for everyone's attendance today. Happy to answer other questions offline.